Welcome to VoteProPot-Cast, brought to you by VoteProPot.com. In Ohio, medical marijuana patients are not buying weed. The cannabis industry is saving cities with struggling economies. CBD could be used as a powerful antibiotic. A Baltimore mailman spent a year delivering marijuana along his route. And what are Wall Street's two favorite cannabis stocks? You may be surprised. We're going to cover all those stories and more. Hello, everybody, and welcome to VoteProPot-Cast. I'm Phil Adams.
I'm Jay Britton.
And I'm Andrew McCready's.
First, just a quick update. Those who are regular listeners to VoteProPot-Cast know that Illinois became the 11th state to legalize recreational marijuana, adult use marijuana, and as of this week, as we speak, it has become official. It is now the law of the state of Illinois.
Yay!
Hey-o. Welcome aboard, Illinois.
Welcome to the 21st century.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's great news. But in a place way far away from Illinois, in Indonesia, the police inadvertently got pretty much everyone in this town high. How did they do that? Well, you know, we don't think things through sometimes, and that's perfectly normal. But in this case, this was just too much. Someone sets a fire, and somebody else come up with a stupid idea. Well, it turns out the police in West Jakarta, in Indonesia, and if you don't know where that is, get a globe. The police got people insanely high when they tried to burn 3 tons of marijuana just out in the open.
Whoa.
But not only were they burning cannabis, the fire included more than 2,500 ecstasy pills and 2 pounds of crystal meth.
Jeez.
Why? Because they wanted to destroy them. Well, a lot of people in town got destroyed. So, according to the reports, the police officers anticipate that the fumes created by the drugs would be potent and powerful, and they prepared. All the cops had gas masks. But guess what? They forgot to inform the locals in the area, and a number of the people complained they were suffering from dizziness, headaches, and some just felt high. Now,
That's a party right there.
Now, who thought this was a good idea? Now,
Wonder
luckily,
if it affected burger sales or nacho sales.
Yeah, right.
Or in that case, noodles and ramen. Or, let's go get some food, man, some dumplings.
yeah. Now, the other thing is they may have destroyed all of those illegal drugs, but they created a whole new market for them. Because now people are high and they say, "Hey man, what's wrong with that?" Can you imagine how the conversations went? Hey man, you smell something? Yeah, it smells a little funky in here. Is there a skunk around? Yeah, maybe we should call. Yo, you hungry? We should check out that new ramen place.
There's a line around the 7-Eleven.
But what is the best way to dispose of contraband?
I don't know. Put it in a landfill?
They say, like prescription pills, you should not flush them down the toilet because those drugs
Right.
get into the water supply.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so you're supposed to, I read that you're supposed to take pills and mix them with wet coffee grounds and just bundle them up and throw them in the landfill. But
Why coffee grounds?
Because I guess it dissolves them. So if someone finds them, it's not like,
Okay.
they'll be, unusable. But
But what do you do with 3 tons of cannabis?
Sell it.
Actually, you don't burn
what you
it.
do, you process it,
sell
make oil, and give it to sick people who need it. That's what you should do.
There you go.
You use it. That's what's happening around the globe in the world of cannabis. And we want everyone to stay informed. That's why we come up with these. Now, that's a funny story, but, there's lots of good, important information. And we urge everybody out there to stay informed, get involved. And one great place to start, happens to be our website. Check us out at VoteProPot.com.
And we definitely would love to hear from you. When you go to VoteProPot.com, click on the contact tab and you can send us an email. You can call us on our message line. The number's also on that tab. And we'd like to thank the folks who have left us 5-star ratings and comments on iTunes and Apple Podcast. It helps us a lot move up in the ratings and get more listeners. So if you have a minute, you like what you hear, go to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star rating.
And please like and follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Just to search for VoteProPot.
Over on this in this hemisphere, there are some patients, medical marijuana patients, who are just not buying weed. What's going on with that, Jay?
Yeah, Ohio. And I'll preface this by saying we got an email from a listener named Jason Young. He's from Ohio. He had a lot of questions about what's going on in Ohio legalization-wise. And I would just start by saying there's plenty of websites out there. Go to normal.com. Good place to start. They have a state info tab at the top, and then they give you a map and hit Ohio, and you can go in there and see what's going on in Ohio. But here's a story about Ohio that's kind of interesting and kind of goes to the point that we speak about a lot about regulations and how these things are shaking out. 42,000 people are eligible for medical marijuana in Ohio. Less than half of them are buying weed. And the surveys they've done to find out why all come back to one answer, and it's price.
Price.
Overwhelmingly, it's because of the cost. The medical marijuana was approved in Ohio in 2016, I believe it was, for 21 medical conditions. PTSD, chronic pain, the typical stuff. But the first dispensary didn't open until March, a couple months ago. Only 18 of the 56 approved dispensaries have opened so far, and there's a very limited number of growers and processors. As a result of all of this, prices are incredibly high. For the most part, you could chalk this up, I would say, to growing pains. They're still kind of eking it out. But my God, it's been 3 years.
I know. They're going
and they
way
still
slow.
haven't got their shit together,
Yeah.
So the question is, are the regulations at fault? The way it works in Ohio, there's some things in their regulations that are different from every other state. The rules were set up by the Ohio State Pharmacy Board. And the way they set up the regulations, it says that marijuana or infused products have to be packaged in a certain amount that's called a whole day unit. But the genius of the legislators, they never said what that unit was. So what they ended up having to do, and one of the reasons it's taken so long, is they put a board together of pharmacists, and they came up with this arbitrary freaking number. The unit is 2.83 grams, which is a tenth of an ounce. So in other words, every package has to be in a tenth of an ounce. Okay? That's one of the issues.
So it's a little smaller than an eighth.
Yes, exactly. But the one of the other issues that's causing the costs to be so high is that only growers and product manufacturers can package the products, and the products have to be sold in the original sealed packaging. And a lot of other states, what they do is the dispensaries can buy weed in bulk, and then they can package it within the dispensary as long as they label it properly. So it's already been tested and all that, and it comes in bulk, and then so that obviously that keeps the cost down. They can't do that in Ohio. It has to be packaged in 10th ounce freaking containers and then sent in the original packaging, and they have to sell it that way. To give you an idea of the pricing, one other thing I didn't mention, the cost of doing business in the cannabis business in Ohio is the highest in the country. That being a business license is $200,000 a year for a large scale grower, plus $70,000 every 2 years for dispensary owners. And businesses pay additional fees on top of that, including, it says, businesses pay additional fees to the state to register employees and pay a $100 fee for every strain that they sell. So every time they get a new strain, they got to pay a $100 fee to carry that strain.
There are thousands of strains.
Oh my God, it's so expensive.
It almost seems like, they're going to make it legal, but only grudgingly.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they're going to make it impossible to do business.
Yeah. Well,
so that signals to me a couple of things. One, that the state government really has no interest in legalizing cannabis, or what they're really after is the graft. What they're really after is to put as many roadblocks in the way so people are going to have to grease their palms to get past them. Well, that's what that sounds like to me. That's a civics lesson in intrusive government.
And in the meantime, then go around saying how they're so pro-pot.
Right, exactly.
Right. So they can still be telling the truth, or in layman's terms, lying.
They surveyed a couple thousand people, and almost 85% of them said the reason they're not using their card and buying the weed is because it's too expensive. And almost the same amount said that they're going across state lines, for example, to Michigan, and buying weed because it's so much cheaper. They're buying on the black market. I mean, most of them are saying, look, my dealer's half the price. I want to stay with the same guy I've been buying weed from for 20 years. But just to finish up, let me give you some pricing here so you guys get a feel for what we're talking about here.
Okay.
Again, you have to understand that you can only buy this shit in, these one-day units. So what it comes out to is obviously cash, $50 per unit for flower. So you're talking about the equal of $500 an ounce. So that's the going rate, or was when these dispensaries opened in March. They said the price is $500 an ounce, and the prices have actually come down about 10% since then. They'll come down a little bit. To give you an example, Mission dispensaries charge anywhere from $150 to $300 on average for an ounce, which is about probably what we pay here, or you guys pay in Maryland, right? $150 to $300, something like that. The average price per ounce when the dispensaries first opened, the average price per ounce was $540.
That's schmoly. That's nuts.
See what happened in Maryland when they first opened the medical dispensaries, the prices were pretty high. And I think the same thing happened. A lot of people, they'd register, they'd come in and go, I'll just take a gram, But the prices eventually came down. And I think the state government's they're going to have to revamp those rules. Someone's going to come in and go, guys, this is ridiculous. Do you charge a liquor store for every, $100 for selling Coors and $100 for selling Budweiser?
Well,
and $100
if you could only buy
Schlitz?
Airplane bottles, you probably would have to pay that much. That's the stupid thing. You got to buy it in 1/10 of an ounce. It's stupid. And the reason they did that is because the way the regulations are set up, the regulations say that they set a limit. You can't possess or buy more than a 90-day supply. But they never said what that supply was. That's why they put the board together, and the board came up with this arbitrary 1/10 of an ounce.
Yeah. No, now, don't you think on the other hand that at some point somebody in Columbus or one of the cities there is going to discover the money that can be made with legal marijuana that's accessible, that's affordable, and try to make things easier for it, because you can make up for a lot of cash shortfalls by the tax revenues from medical marijuana or legal marijuana.
Well, I think a lot of it's just the packaging costs of having to package everything in 1/10 of an ounce. That really drives the price up. When you have child-proof containers and all that shit, labeling, testing, all that you got to do for every unit, but your units can only be 1/10 of an ounce. So I think, I think a lot of this be chalked up to growing pains, and they'll work through it. And, within a year or so, they'll probably write some new legislation.
It's Ohio. I'm going to give them 3 years. Okay.
3 years.
Well, the thing is, to reiterate Phil's point, and that is the state will greatly benefit from a prosperous, successful medical cannabis or recreational cannabis industry. Now, it seems they're doing everything to prevent a successful industry. A growing number of states have legalized marijuana, and there have been a number of cities who were suffering from financial strife, whether it be because of industries left or sagging economies. But they're finding that cannabis is reinvigorating a lot of small cities' economies. Mm-hmm. Now, take, for example, Pueblo, Colorado, which is a city of about 100,000 people. Now, they found that in 2014, after the state legalized recreational cannabis, that not only did tax revenues increase, more jobs were created in the city. There's a spread of all the ancillary industries started generating money. The electricians, the plumbers, the real estate agents, everyone started getting busier and started working, and it helped and they said it really made a difference and brought, I think it was $58 million to the city in 2016.
Wow.
How many cities of around 100,000 people will $58 million not, have an incredible positive effect on?
All right, that's a chunk of change.
So I think a lot of these naysayers are starting to look, around it because at the same time they're saying we don't want it in our city because it's going to encourage crime, and what about the children? And they're going, well, in Colorado, crime was not affected. Another argument is homelessness. They're going, no, in all these cities, homelessness was not affected by legalization of marijuana. In fact, there's more jobs out there. So I don't know if it's going to affect homelessness, but it is going to affect unemployment. So some people could get, find work they couldn't find it before. So
it's industry,
right?
Well, I think one of the things politicians love is money to spend, and one of the reasons some of the politicians have been cautious about, legalization is not that they wouldn't have the money; they knew that would be the case, but they were afraid of some of the byproducts of marijuana. And like Andrew's point is, those byproducts don't exist. The scary ones
never materialize.
They never materialize. So all the more reason for them to go, that's a nice chunk of change that we can spend on something. Let's move this forward.
A similar thing is happening in California. Now, since they legalized recreational, a lot of these medical marijuana dispensaries and people in the medical marijuana industry in California supported the legalization in those Prop 64 that recently passed. But now the thing about that legislation was it said that the municipalities had the right to govern the marijuana industry in their communities. So all these communities said, nope, we don't want marijuana industry in our community. The problem is that the medical marijuana industry in California has been going since 1994.
Right.
And there's just an unbelievable amount of people in that industry. And they're all getting regulated out of business.
Right.
Now, in Colorado, but in Oregon, and the same thing happened in Oregon, there were over 400 medical marijuana dispensaries. And when recreational came in, especially with the glut and the prices plummeted, of those 400 medical marijuana dispensaries, there's only 2 left in the whole state. Now, what's happening is that, and then also, geographically, they're drying up. So patients don't have good, easy access to their medicine. And also, some of these companies that were in certain areas and now were regulated out of business were making the tinctures and the creams and the medicines. They were small businesses. And so now a lot of these patients in California can't get their medicine anymore because that cream and that company went under, had to close down or move.
So is that same thing happening, Andrew, in Oregon, where these ancillary or processing companies are being regulated out of business too, or is that just a California thing?
Well, I think it happened more in California because it had a more established medical industry. Now, I understand in Oregon, I think it might be happening to some extent because but I don't think their medical industry was as old.
Right, wasn't as far along.
As far as long, or I should say, as established.
Right.
It did happen in Canada as well. Same thing.
A question for you, Andrew. That brings up a great point. Yeah, as to what happens with states that have legal medical and businesses are established and growing, and then all of a sudden they go to legal recreational. How does that impact the medical side? It's got to.
Well,
it has to.
What's going to happen from here on out, I think, is what happened in Colorado because Colorado medical was just a few years ahead of recreational. So what happened there is all the medical people those are the ones they cashed in all of a sudden because the day it became legal recreationally.
They were already set up. I see.
They just said, okay, before you needed a card, now you don't. Come on, everybody, to show your ID. And it was a windfall.
Right.
So I think that, and on the East Coast, that's what you're going to see. I mean, I don't think we're going to have because there's no medical, because they'll be coordinated. But in some places where they had that, especially California, because for years it was so vague, the laws, and people are opening up little things. And now what's happening in California is you're going around and busting all these operations that were once legal, but now technically they lost their licenses or they maybe exaggerated on their applications. And the cops are coming in and going, we busted an illegal grow. They go, wait a minute, there's a sign with a marijuana leaf out front. This is not an illegal grow.
Yeah.
And the one they just busted, it said it took them 4 days to go in and cut down all the plants and take them out. I mean, it was that big.
A lot of plants, yeah.
Oh, it was unbelievable. It was like
wow.
Leave it to California.
Hundreds of thousands of plants.
Clusterfuck it with their regulations, yeah.
Right.
It's true. I mean, it's tough.
So it's still kind of the Wild West in this industry.
A huge industry has grown in the marijuana field, especially in California, with compliance law. You have to, if you have a dispensary, you got to hire these firms just to make sure you're following all the freaking regulations that change every 6 months. It's very complicated.
An interesting thing happened in Oregon. So what they were saying, they actually had campaigns like legalize, legitimize your, I forgot what the catchphrase was, and that's what happened. All these illegal growers got permits to be small growers, alternative growers, I guess, artisanal growers.
Right.
But they sort of said you're limited to so many plants and so many square feet. But they didn't realize that these guys were really good at what they do, and they produce way more than anyone thought. And now they have an 8-year surplus.
Oh my Lord!
So what they actually in Oregon now they were holding back issuing any new permits, which is understandable.
Yeah, sure. But at least you're not regulating existing companies out the door,
out of business,
right. And they're doing actually in Oregon. They just passed it. Went into law that they are the governor's allowed to negotiate with other states for wholesale trade in cannabis. Now, one clause in this law is they can't do anything until the federal government, the Justice Department, makes an exemption. And I think that's where it's going to go before it gets legalized.
You think so?
Yeah. I think the Oregon's going to come in and go, man, we want an exemption to sell to Washington State and California wholesale. We're just going to sell bulk to processors so they can, sell it by flower or make concentrates.
That would seem like an easier lift. I mean, legally, right?
Yeah,
to just give them a pass.
So then you got to think about other states what might follow suit. That's why I think the big one would be Maryland trying to sell growers selling to processors in Washington D.C. Now, not just that would be obviously they border on each other, but I think the statement of being in the nation's capital would be a little extra newsworthy. So I predict that might happen.
Staying with the medical marijuana theme for a moment, there is some kind of research news regarding CBD, right, Jay?
Yeah. This took place last week during last Sunday's annual meeting of the American Society of Microbiology. Mark Blakovich, a senior research chemist at the University of Queensland, presented his findings that CBD is, quote, remarkably effective, unquote, at killing a range of bacteria, including several antibiotic-resistant strains, meaning we may have a new weapon in the war against superbugs. So this is very preliminary research, but what they found is they've taken CBD and found that it kills all kinds of bacteria, which is a very good sign that there may be a way to develop it into an antibiotic. Currently, as I understand it, and this is kind of technical, but essentially what they found is that rubbing this, for example, on your skin, the CBD compound, salve or whatever they're using, kills all kinds of bacteria. And through a study, which is funded in part by a drug discovery company, that's important to say, Blankovich found that a synthetic form of CBD was able to kill several types of gram-positive bacteria in a lab, including ones that can cause and lead to MRSA and pneumonia. It was also effective. It was also effective at treating skin infections on mice. So they've only done surface testing and on rodents. So there's a lot of research to be done, and it's kind of jumping the gun to say that this is a save the world antibiotic here. But it's promising. It's promising and it's interesting. I think you have to put it in perspective. Yeah. But so it's big news.
And moving to a slightly different topic, we like to update folks on who may be interested in the financial aspects of cannabis. what do you think are some of the favorite cannabis stocks on Wall Street? Well, we've got a report from the Motley Fool.
I love that website.
It's a great website, and these may surprise you a little bit as we're moving kind of out of the shadows. And this is just within the last few years. There are a lot of financial analyst companies, firms that are getting full scale into cannabis. We had a representative from one of them on our show not too long ago, Cody Sanchez. These are in the United States, ArcView Market Research and BDS Analytics. And they're estimating that total cannabis sales, and that includes hemp-derived CBDs and others, will come in at $44.8 billion by 2024.
Wow.
And that's in annual revenue. That's an amazing number.
Yeah. Jeez.
And so this is an enormous commercial opportunity, and Wall Street is taking notice. And now there are a number of firms that have issued ratings and price targets like they do with every other company for a bunch of publicly traded cannabis companies. And when you think about it, that's kind of remarkable, given that, the industry was pretty much viewed not too long ago as pretty much off limits.
Very recent.
And now it's becoming very much mainstream. Well, analysts seem to think that these two cannabis stocks are at the top of their basic initial kind of report card. Aleafia Health, that trades on the NASDAQ, and MedMen Enterprises, which we've talked about in the past, which is also traded on the NASDAQ. Those are their two top picks because, oddly enough, they have been some of the worst performers this past year, which is a little bit shocking to those who have been following it. So what's up with that? Well, apparently they consider Aleafia Health to have the best upside among the top tier cultivators. They think that they have the best potential, and by a wide margin, with an average price target of $4.75 a share. Why? Well, because last March, Aleafia made a game-changing transaction by acquiring a medical cannabis company, Emblem, in an all-stock transaction. Now, this acquisition enhanced Aleafia's medical service provider network in cannabis and brought access to high margin derivative products, as well as increase their capacity. So the stocks have not been performing that well, but they have been setting themselves up for a lot of upside.
Interesting.
And now the downside, well, the company is behind a lot of the leaders, and we've spoken about some of these companies in terms of overall business development. And these are the ones with the most vertical integration. But with this Emblem transaction, the Aleafia's evolution, so to speak, has been accelerated. Mm-hmm. So, it's going to struggle to keep up with some of the more established names. But the bottom line is the progress this year and the overall rosy outlook on Wall Street, Aleafia remains, a high risk, granted, but high reward
potential
stock play.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a small cap stock, best suited, and they think it's best suited as a watch list candidate at the moment. So keep your eye on Aleafia Health. I don't think anyone's saying go out and buy up their stocks now,
right?
But something to keep on your watch list. The other one is MedMen Enterprises, and it is an kind of, iconic upscale retailer.
They're huge.
And Wall Street is high on this stock The company has, company has 86 retail licenses, active operations in 5 states with more on the way, and partnerships with Canada's Kronos Group that we've talked about in the past as well. And so expands their footprint on both sides of the border.
They just purchased the largest outdoor grow in Nevada.
Yeah. We did a story a couple weeks ago about how they had they got a huge loan. I mean, hundreds of millions because they were just hemorrhaging cash. Part of the reason is they've been acquiring all these other companies, like Andrew said, these huge grow operations. So
they're very aggressive.
Very aggressive, and huge. I'm surprised that they would list them as a stock to buy at this point because, everything you read says they're overpriced right now and that, again, they're hemorrhaging cash. That's surprising.
Right. So the fundamentals on some of these stocks are not what you want, not what you're looking for.
But the
to put
potential,
on your buy
I guess,
list.
is just phenomenal.
But what they're doing is gearing up for, expansive growth over, as time goes on.
Right.
And, they're definitely worth keeping an eye on. And, if you have some, high risk, investment dollars to play with, maybe you do
got to lose,
acquire some and just see how they perform. In the education world, we're also seeing some advances, and this is happening right here at home at University of Maryland in College Park.
Yes, the University of Maryland just announced the country's first medical marijuana master's program.
Nice.
As more states legalize cannabis for medical use, the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy is launching the nation's first master's program to train students about science and policies of medical marijuana. It's a 2-year program, and it's going to be offered at Shady Grove in Rockville, guys.
Oh, jeez.
Right down the street from me, baby.
That's our old stomping grounds.
That's where we graduated from high school at Shady Grove Music Hall.
That's right.
It figures. Maybe they'll have a memorial plaque honored to us or something when they open this place. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think so.
No? Okay.
No, this is a great thing. I think it shows, because that's really needed, because the number one thing for medical marijuana is to educate doctors. And someone with a master's degree and with the correct knowledge is going to go in, and these doctors are going to listen to them. And they're going to lay down groundworks and a realistic, workable, humane, system of prescribing medical cannabis.
Right.
I think it's great.
That's the biggest problem in medical right now is that doctors don't know shit about cannabis.
Yeah, 80% of doctors don't know anything about it.
Anything.
And what we've been saying almost since the first episode is that what's really needed on all of this is more research. Well, more research means we need more researchers.
Yeah, exactly.
Which means they need to be educating people. And kudos to University of Maryland.
Absolutely.
Fear the turtle. Go Terps.
It says here, application deadline for this program is August 15th for classes beginning August 26th. So,
I'm sure it's going to fill up.
Oh, you Marylanders. Yeah, that's pretty cool. A master's in cannabis.
Yep.
Medical cannabis science.
I think this also shows that there has been a lot of research. There is a lot of knowledge out there and enough knowledge to get a master's degree in it.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
good point. Yeah, right.
And so these are the people that are going to kick research up another notch. These are the people that are going to start, encouraging and working in greater research, more defined and more serious research. We can really start getting some answers.
I went to.
This is great.
I read this article on one of the local TV station websites. Then I went to the University of Maryland's website, and what they say is the Master's in Medical Cannabis Science and Therapeutic is the first graduate program in the country dedicated to the study of medical cannabis. It aims to meet the needs of all individuals interested in advancing their knowledge about medical cannabis, including healthcare professionals such as physicians, nurses, and pharmacists, scientists and regulators, growers and dispensary owners, and policy and industry professionals.
We would love to hear from anybody out there who's interested in this program. and tell us what you think. Leave us a comment on our comment down at the bottom of our show description. Go to VoteProPot.com and leave us a note there. And before we wrap this up, Andrew, you have some other news from right here in the state of Maryland.
More Maryland news. That's right. A mailman in Baltimore City has just pled guilty for distributing cannabis along his mail route.
Oh, no.
I know that guy.
So apparently, oh, well, there goes your guy. No, apparently what happened was he would get a guy in California would ship packages, and they'd be like one kilo packages, which is like 2.5 pounds, or two point something pounds. And he would mail them to these weird addresses, and the mailman would see these packages and deliver them to the right address, And apparently the police caught wind of this, and they followed it for a year.
Oh my God!
Really?
Okay,
it took him that long.
Which I'm like, really? Yeah. So, and I mean, really, how much time is this guy going to get at this point? But so he pleaded guilty. Yeah, that's what we did, and so apparently the Postal Service didn't have any, obviously didn't have any knowledge of it, but apparently they did like. I forgot what the total amount, but it was like, here it is. It's they did over 100 kilos, so 200 some odd pounds that they did this with.
So let me understand this. This mailman would mail kilo packages to various addresses, and then he himself would deliver them.
No, another guy, a guy in California.
Oh, guy in California
would mail them to addresses in Baltimore on his route, and then he would see the packages and drop them off. So the police saw this, and they followed him for a year until they said, okay, I guess they witnessed him doing 100 kilograms, So
right.
That's just what they caught him doing. God knows how long they've been doing it. And, I'm sure they didn't go, actually, we've been doing this for 5 years.
Right.
That's pretty clever.
But in a way, man, this could be the answer to some big problems. The Postal Service has problems, Maybe the Postal Service should start delivering weed.
Yeah.
I mean, it's right on their route.
Yeah. Maybe get them out of the deficit.
What kind of possible charges and what kind of time is this guy looking at?
Well, they didn't say, but he's going to be he's up to be sentenced September 16th.
He's hosed.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Nowadays, there's some people getting.
Yeah, but that's feds, man. It's over state lines. That's
and it's mail
fraud. That's some serious shit. Maryland can't help you.
Yeah, that's federal. That's federal shit, man.
The feds are going to be up his ass, man. He's screwed.
Yeah, they're not just going to tell him not to do it again.
There goes
Actually, the postal inspectors are like some badass, like law enforcement group. That sort of goes under the radar.
I understand that. Yeah,
those guys are pretty hard ass. Anyway, so much for Maryland in the news.
Yeah, there you go. We're becoming a local program here.
That's right. We are a center of cannabis here in the Old Line State.
Well, Maryland was named after marijuana. It's really marijuana land is how it was really.
A lot of people don't know that.
Named.
I don't think that's true.
Oh, man, I'm pretty sure Bob Marley did.
I don't think that's true. If anybody else has any thoughts as to how Maryland really got its name, don't bother writing us because we really don't care.
Well, it's from the Queen of England. Come on, we know that.
I know. It's Queen. Anyway, but if you have something interesting to talk about, we would love to hear anything you've got to say.
What, do you say I'm not interesting?
No.
Yeah, I mean, kind of alluding to the fact, as opposed to what we just heard, if we have anything interesting to say.
Yeah, post your comments, your questions, your corrections, your historical insights on anything and everything related to the world of cannabis. Just check us out at VoteProPot.com.
And you can go to our contact page and send us a message or email us at podcast@VoteProPot.com.
And please like and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and now Instagram. Just do a search for Vote Pro Pot.
Wish I was up in Vancouver. Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. But here I am in New York City, hiding out in Central Park, getting kidnapped by the police today sometime before dark. But I wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. The judge looked down upon me, frowned. He said, kid, get on your way. Just don't start out your morning with espresso and a J. I said, I wish I was up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. Hitched on out to Portland, caught a ride up to BC, took the bus over to the neighborhood to have a bowl with my coffee. Now I'm up in Vancouver at the Cannabis Cafe, smoking good old Sensimilla at the beginning of the day. Smoking good old Sensimilla